everyone. Welcome back to the VIBE Edu podcast. I'm Kim Gameroz, and I am with Mitch, TJ, and Josh. Today, we are talking about teacher evaluations. This is our third episode of our 4-part series. But before we start talking, we need to chit-chat about VIBE Edu, the event. So a week ago, I had the pleasure of being in the flesh with Josh and Mitch. TJ wasn't there. It's fine. We forgive you ish. But we need to talk about what the people are saying. We need to talk about your experiences. And I just want to hear from you guys first. So what did you think about that room last week?
Well, one, it was unbelievable, but I wanted to throw it to Mitch because we've talked about it being an unconference, and then Mitch, you started talking and we had to tell you to save it for the episode, but you started talking about just not knowing as a speaker kind of the flow and what was expected of you. So do you want to expand on that real quick?
Yeah. I liked it, Kim, organizer, host. Well, I like how you said it multiple times like this. What was notably different is there was no presentations the whole event. And yet it was, I think, a pretty enriching professional learning experience, but the fact that it was more conversations and there were panels, but the audience was definitely invited to be a part of the conversation. And at times that happened more than others because it was just very organic. But with Josh and I being on a panel together, which was awesome, it was kind of fun, but also not nerve-wracking, but it was like, okay, we sat down and it's like, I don't know what I'm going to be. There was no pre-game on the questions. We didn't know what was coming at us. And because of that, I think it made for a really unique but organic conversation. It was fun, really fun. Even there was a big panel at the end, TJ, with all the speakers or panelists. And that was pretty fun just to watch the conversation ebb and flow based on audience Q&A. So it was fun. But the room was incredible.
Yeah, the venue was awesome. The folks, the energy, the passion, the enthusiasm, they were running inside. It was awesome. So
they were running.
Kim, literally running, crazy. And there's a limo, there was pictures, there were balloons, lights.
I was jealous of the picture of the three of you. Can you put me in it?
Yeah, I'll just have your head in the back, you're creeping. No. Well, Kim, it was awesome because Mitch and I have never met in person. I've met you in person. We've had coffee before, and it was obviously, Kim, phenomenal to reconnect in person with you. But for Mitch and I mean, we've been friends for years and never actually got to be in the same room together. And then on top of that, to present and be on a panelist, I will say I appreciate you switching things around for us to be next to each other, because I will say I had a level of comfort there. And it was Mitch is, I guess, my safety blanket in situations like this, I guess, is what it comes down to. Yeah. And we just vibed off each other.
It's like an older brother thing, you know.
Whatever, dude.
I'm just saying I'm old and you're not. I'm the older brother. No, it was fun. It was good. I like Josh, not knowing what we were going into. The congruency of our messages was, it almost seemed like it was prepared.
Yeah.
To the point where one of the ladies in our audience, it was TJ, there was three, the first set of breakout panels, there was 3 happening concurrently, and she came up afterwards and was like, you two need to speak more together. And was like, oh yeah. And I think you and I were both feeling that. It was really fun.
Did you tell them there's a podcast where we speak every week together?
Oh yeah.
Which one's that?
What's this called again?
Don't joke.
I got it down now.
This
is the VIBE Edu podcast.
You can't forget it now.
And we're talking about teacher evaluation this time, and it's our 3rd episode of this series of 4.
Mic drop.
Love you.
Yep.
I love it. Yeah. Okay, well, do you want to know what the teachers have been saying?
How's in the community, the feedback?
So one of them, love this. She said, it definitely was not a typical PD. No doors separating sessions, no PowerPoint slideshows, no circular tables, just community, engagement, and love.
Oh, and that's great.
It's so beautiful because the very, very beginning, I did say this is a safe space, right? And you said the word safe, Josh, like, yeah, you need to feel safe in these sessions and you need to feel safe in to be able to speak and ask questions. And at the very end, we did have a mother of an autistic kiddo who I could feel her vibe. I just knew I know her, I've coached her, and I could tell that she was wanting to say something at the end. And when I looked at her and said, "You want the microphone?" She looked at me and was like, "It's happening. Like, it's happening." And she did. And she asked her question. And in that moment, I mean, she had to like say it again, right? Like the panelists wanted to hear her say it again. I could tell, like, oh gosh, is she gonna be able to say this question again? But she did. And afterwards, I talked to her. I mean, she posted on her Instagram feed that she felt so empowered. And she was telling her community of moms that follow her, she was like, my one takeaway is use your voice. Don't ever feel like you can't use your voice. And that is so powerful. So it's just, they're beaming. They're, of course, obsessed with you two. So TJ, just get ready. Like the obsession will continue when you're in the room too. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, now he's here too. They couldn't get enough of you guys. They've been listening to our conversations here on the podcast. And I know that sense of community is really because of these conversations. So I just want to thank you guys seriously for being there. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome.
Yeah, totally. It was an honor. Yeah. For sure.
And the listeners here are going to come to the next event, right? So like this is the tribe. The people who were there are listeners already, and we're going to collect the others along the way. Because nobody's listening to this podcast who doesn't care, or who doesn't care about kids or doesn't care about teaching. I mean, it's a podcast about teaching and learning, and we're going to talk about more about teacher evaluations today, how to do them better, because that's key. But the people listening are the others, and we want them to come to the event. And I was speaking in another place, and I just couldn't make it work. But I will be there next year. We'll figure that out, and can't wait.
Yeah, but there could always be a pop-up VIBE EDU experience somewhere soon. Just saying, my wheels have been turning.
Pop-up. I mean, that would probably mean that other people around the country may not have to travel as far from their location to be able to attend such an event.
How about on the East Coast? Come on, man.
Never know.
Never know.
Okay.
All right, let's jam.
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Go for it.
All right. Can I throw something out?
Can we do the pop-up next week in New York?
Yep.
Because I can make it. I can make it.
Mitch is looking at his calendar, sweating over there.
I'll be in New York City next week working with the Charter School Network. Let's do a pop-up. Anywhere I go, I'm going to just throw it out. Let's do a pop-up.
Just throw it out to your community.
Can we do it in New Mexico? Let's do pop-up in New Mexico.
Well, remember, I told you I wanted to go to Cabo. That's what I said. So
yeah, that was Kim's idea.
That was at the very end.
Located that is, but I get it.
Mitch and I looked at each other like, "What did she just say?"
Flying you boys out. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. So as far as teacher evaluations, let's kick this off. So TJ, I know this was kind of mentioned before, but I also want to mention for our listeners too. And maybe this goes in turn with what you were talking about, Kim, with that parent, right? Because her question was about her child, and really was more about like advocacy. Like you're your own child's advocate. You need to get information to the campus and to the teachers to make sure that they're going to be successful. But this also can be turned on the teacher evaluation as far as, when we're talking about teachers and being advocates for themselves, sometimes there's a lack of communication from leaders to teachers in regards to what they're looking for when they're coming in for an observation. So if the teacher's feeling that right now, regardless of where you're at, if you're an elementary teacher, middle school, high school, and you're feeling that as the beginning of the school year is upon us, what should be communicated? And as maybe we can flip it on as far as like when you go into a classroom as an observer, what is it that you're looking for?
So the one thing, Joe and I train school leaders on feedback mechanisms, because that's been one of our big things. And we have ways that we train them on models of feedback. But one of the concepts that hides behind that that I think is important to your point, Josh, and we call principles of instruction. You can call it an instructional framework, whatever it is. You build your instructional framework, and then you pick a few of those strategies to be targets for the school year. And I mean like 3 for the whole year. Now everybody knows exactly what you're looking for. You have this structure that's principles of instruction or whatever it is, and we pick those from really high effect size strategies that we know work with learning. I know Mitch is going to nerd out on this with some of the work that he does, but high effect size strategies for retention, and then honing in on a few. Because I don't think it's fair to go into a classroom without somewhat of an agreement about the things you're looking for. Because I just don't, like, in a post-observation conference, I don't think any teacher should be blindsided by what we say.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally fair to critique the work, right? And we've talked at length about the rubrics and the evaluation and things we like and don't like about that. But if you've already given the teachers the target, then I think it's a richer conversation. And I also think, by the way, 90% or more of the teachers will do what's on the target list of strategies. So when you come forward and you say, well, I really wish you would have done X, Y, or Z instead, I think most teachers are thinking, well, if that's what you wanted me to do, you should have told me before you came in.
Okay. I think I'm going to go elementary school brain, right? That's where I always go. If we're working with a school or a school district, usually they'll say, okay, social emotional learning, we want to see the systems, we want to see all of those supports, your, foundational supports, your tier 1 supports, we want to see those in place. And I love when a principal starts the school year off and says, okay, we've been working with Kim for the past year or two. This is what I expect in your classrooms. And this year for our teacher evaluations, I really want us to focus on X, Y, and Z. I think that way teachers aren't going around going, do you have an observation this school year? Are you getting observed? Are you getting observed? What they do when they were in your classroom? What they say, that's what goes on. And instead of like just eliminating that straight out the gate, it would just be so lovely if like everybody knows what the focus is. I mean, it could be anything. It could be your math curriculum, could be reading, and whatever it is that your focus is on, and say, okay, we've been working through this the past year or two, and this is what I expect. This is what I want to see. Because like you said, TJ, these teachers, they want to go, okay, you want to see that? I'll do that for you, right? So I don't know. I think just being open and honest, and also like not adding something new to their plate, but just going, yeah, I've noticed that you guys have been working on this. We've all been in this work together, and this is what I expect to see. I think that's for elementary school, especially. That, I mean, it probably goes for everybody, but it feels really
so.
I think too, the rationale has to be strong as well. Like, not just do it because he said so, but here's why. That's why I kind of went to the effect size part, is like, this works and this is why we want you to do it. Something else we could talk about or come back to is those visits need to be spread out. Like, we don't want to wait until the end of the year kind of thing. And then for elementary teachers, they teach so many different things throughout the day, like in self-contained classrooms. We have to go see all of that. We can't just see one of the things that they do. I just don't think that's fair either. I think we need to try to make the calendar work so that we can see the breadth of the day.
I love that you said that.
Yeah. So TJ, and actually to both your points, Kim, too, like we had a relationship inventory that I've constructed, and it's a free download, and I can put it in the show notes for folks, but we had 20 things. And when presenting on it to the staff, to TJ, your point is like, number one is like greeting kids at the door. Well, everyone's like, oh, I do that all the time. Well, what are you doing with fidelity? Are you doing with consistency? And then also the data shows 40% of engagement is risen just with that one thing that you do, instead of checking your email or going to make copies or just having a conversation with a peer teacher, right? So it was something constructed so that when we're doing observations, it's, again, not a gotcha. It's just our best practice occurring in the first 5 minutes of class. Are these 20 things happening? And these are the reasons as to why it's on the list. And it's just to be proactive and do these things that you're showing a safe, to use that word again, environment, something where you feel like you're a part of the community and you belong, and that you're ready to go as far as the lesson and the learning. And so when we had that, teachers loved it just as a reminder. And so it would be posted on their desk or they'd post on their wall. And just again, to show like these are things that need to occur every single class period or every single day, depending on where you are, elementary or secondary, and knowing that these are what's going to help build that healthy relationship with kids, which then on turn will impact in a positive way learning with the students.
Yesterday, two of my teachers from my team, they were working at a school district. And one of the things that we always start the school year off is greeting kids at the door. And they had a group of teachers, so TK all the way through high school, all together. Could you imagine? Love that. And one of my teachers, she was like, Kim, I'd said to them, you need to intentionally greet your kids at the door. And they all kind of looked at me like, yeah, got it. And she's like, and then I demoed what it looked like and sound like as a TK teacher, and then like your fifth grade, and then also your middle school, high school. And every single one of these teachers was like, oh,
that's right.
You modeled it.
Yes. So yes, you talk about it, but yeah, that modeling, like this is what it's expected, right? And this is the why behind it, everything you just said. But as you were talking, I was like, yeah, this is the important stuff, that stuff.
And if it's rooted in research and data that has a high effect size, I like that because it's not even about an evaluation anymore. It's about teaching that works, teaching that makes sense, teaching that's effective. But it also becomes a conversation about, one, you have to model it, but it's also has to be genuine. Like you can't just be at the door and be, hi, because I'm here and I'm supposed to say hi to you. Hi, everybody get in there and say, because I'm not prepared. Like the freedom to stand at your door and greet kids means there's like 5 steps before that gives you the autonomy, because everything is prepped. Everything is so, and then the conversation starts to get a lot more interesting. Like if this feels like, I don't have time to fit it in, well, let's back up before the school day or before this class period in a middle school or high school. You know what I mean? So that I have that in place where you've seen people that are frantic trying to get going just as things are starting, and you just don't have the capacity at that point to authentically greet kids, like really greet people as they're coming into the space.
And that comes back to, Mitch, the executive functions of the teacher too, right? Like the routines and behaviors. And once you get into that rhythm, it's just easy. That there's a do now or something that kids have to do when they come in, and the little kids have to get themselves set up, the older kids have something on the board, that type of thing. Then you're just giving the high fives, the fist pumps. And tell kids too, by the way, when you like their shoes. Kids love it when you tell them that you like their shoes, because like any kid of any age,
adults do too.
Oh no,
dude! I was about
to say, I told this guy, I was in Houston presenting this week, and this guy walked by. I like the shoes, so I was like, dude, I really like your shoes. He was like thrilled. So that's a strategy. Here's one other thing I would say to teachers listening who said, yeah, but my administrator didn't give me those look fors. And so you can re-engineer this. And here's the strategy. At the pre-observation conference or in the beginning of the year, or just casually in the office, make a list of the things that you're working on and the strategies that you want to get better at this year and the reasons why that is, and give it to the administrator. Now, here's the second layer. Even if the pre-observation was yesterday, when they sit down for their observation with the computer at the desk or whatever, put the list back in front of them and say, remember, I'm working on these things, right? Because they're busy and it's really easy to forget. And it's also very easy to get distracted when you're in a room trying to watch a teacher teach 32 kids. Listen, aspire to lead the language of behavior. I can't see whatever it was before, but I don't even remember. X-Men.
No drama.
That's right. You're
I drew a drama llama for you.
Don't do it.
Oh my God.
See, I'm distracted. I was distracted by that. I don't even remember what I was talking about.
So good. So good. timing.
I'm just gonna leave it out there.
Yeah, you should.
But even if you're not me, can you imagine administrators with no look fors and no guidance from the teacher on what they're looking for, trying to do teacher observation? Like,
yeah,
at least these evaluation systems have gotten more sophisticated with the things that teachers should be doing and students should be doing. That's a nice step in the right direction. But boy, oh boy, there's so much dynamics and nuance in teaching. If we're not trying to get better at something in particular, we could be all over the place in what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I think that's why it needs to be very pointed as far as like why people are coming in. I think sometimes we have such a huge umbrella, especially for a leader going into a classroom, that honestly 45 minutes is not enough to really get down to the basics of what's going on. Like even what you're talking about, TJ, and you said it last episode too, which is why I made the sign, is like even just the classroom environment alone, you could spend a whole period in there just depicting what sensory is going on. Our kids, some of them are seeking sensory and some of them are avoiding it at all costs. And so like, is the educational environment set for both sides of students, right? And so, just that component, which is probably not even in the state observation tiers, but it does affect student behavior. It does affect how the emotions when they go into the classroom, or even just can they stay on task? Like TJ, you're sometimes having an issue with because you're reading everything, right? So like, do we have an environment set for all learners, or do we have it just for one type of learner? And I think as a leader, when we're going in, hopefully we are very pointed as to say like why we're in the classroom in the first place, and maybe even chunking it a little bit for the teacher to say, okay, I'm only here for this part or this component of it. And Mitch, I know I kind of interrupted you, so I don't want you to lose your thoughts. So I'm going to throw it back to you.
Oh, well, my first thought, that's why TJ loves talking with me on Zoom more than he does you guys, because he doesn't get distracted. But the point being, if you're in a class as a leader, I think if the point of the observation, of course, it's a requirement, but if the point of it is this, we're all trying to get better, we're trying to learn, we're trying to improve on something, I don't really think it's possible. If the intent is not to check the box that I went to Kim's classroom in first grade and I went to Josh's in fifth grade and I'm going down the line, which some of that's just the facts, right? I got to get in the room. But if it is to give meaningful feedback, I don't know if it's possible to do that if you're not just, to borrow a term from Kim, just picking up on the vibe, like just being there. And yeah, I'm looking for strategies that we agreed on or things that may be less aligned to the rubric and more aligned to school initiatives and what we're doing, and all that's happening. But just some of the best feedback I got from mentor teachers when I was new or in observations was from the people who just parked themselves. And if we did the little breakout, they were just part of the experience in the classroom for 30, 40, even sometimes an hour. And I don't know if I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Even though we're talking formal, that's the real takeaway for the teacher. I mean, if you're just missing the mark so much and there was a pre-eval, like you kind of know what you have to do. The thing's a little bit staged. We get all that. So if you can't, get that done, then maybe the post-observation conversation might go a little different. But most of the time, I feel like, yeah, there's some strong points. Here's some areas of concern, things we're working on. That's all part of it. But that overall vibe, that was always the thing I appreciated most from feedback.
Yeah, so we train, obviously, from candid and compassionate feedback. We train school leaders on soup to nuts, from the principles of instruction to the vision work in the school to these 3 mechanisms for feedback that we have. But one of the things we do, even on the shorter stuff, because it's a muscle, what you're describing is a muscle. It's not like you've got to practice it, right? It's not like you're going to get it in a training. But on the shorter ones, even like the 10-minute, we say 12 to 17 minutes, because after 17 minutes, you're starting to get more into the formal. And before 12, you probably won't see a transition. And so, the old 10-2 strategy, do something for 10 minutes, do something for 2, back and forth. So you want to see a transition. So 12 to 17 minutes, but even before that 12 to 17 minute feedback stuff starts, you got to get in there and take a deep breath. So we actually tell people, don't sit down, like on walkthroughs, not necessarily observations, but when you get in there, don't sit down. Just take a deep breath and feel what it's like to be in there. Is it safe? Is it fun? Does everybody look like they're engaged? Just ask yourself a couple of questions about the feeling in that room. Because guess what? The kids can feel it.
Yeah.
100%.
I was thinking,
yeah,
when I go into classrooms and I try to get the vibe, right, of what's going on, I always look at, like, do the kids understand, like, is there consistency? I know, Mitch, I always think of you like consistency, and are there routines? And so most of the time, especially in an elementary school classroom that is running like a well-oiled machine, it's the way in which you deliver the content. It's the tone in your voice. The kids know, oh, she's getting ready to wrap this up. Like, I know what's expected. I'm going to do this now, right? Like, that sort of a vibe in a classroom. That's a great way for, I think, an administrator to go, okay, it's vibing in here. Like, she's got it going on. Instead of, I think as a teacher, I think we worry about the content that we're delivering during the observation, when really it's like the stuff that you guys were saying, right? Do the kids feel safe? Do they feel loved, engaged, supported? Is there a sense of community, routine, structure, all of that? And I think for teachers, it's hard to think about that they're looking at that, right? So I don't know, like, even Mitch, I know I was reading part of your new book. Can't wait for it. But part of it, one thing that stuck with me was just a picture of a kid sitting on their whiteboard with their eraser next to them and their dry erase marker. And I was like, yeah, that in a first grade classroom, that is exactly the routine that I had every single time. When you come down for math or whatever it is, you bring your whiteboard, you hold it like this, right? You hold your materials this way. Yeah. We walk down to the carpet, you put it underneath your booty, you set it down, like maybe the marker is in front of you and eraser is like on top or something. That plus a visual to support all kids. Ooh, that's some juicy stuff that as an administrator, I'd go, this teacher's got it going on in here. Like, and again, that has nothing to do with content. That's moving from point A to point B and getting ready for that instructional time.
Mm-hmm. So much of TJ, good teaching has nothing to do with content. May I go out on a limb and say 100% of teaching has very little to do with content, because they are transferable skills. Now, that's not to say content's not important, and I'm obviously making an overstatement, but it's true. We, especially as we get older, you see it moving from, and my evidence from kind of, and not to say us secondary folks aren't student centered, but we become so content focused and so differentiated, because I teach math, you teach ELA, you teach history, like, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's, we just tend to get more and more content focused, and some of these things can fall by the wayside, and they're just small minor adjustments that make a lesson or a school day just, and it's that clarity, modeling, and routine, Kim, that you're talking about. And yeah, anyway, I interrupted you, Josh.
No, I was thinking TJ's term with, like, well, it's really muscle memory. And I'm thinking too, even like training yourself to get into classrooms. But I think that's hard. And regardless of your role, if that's part of it, is you're supposed to get in and do observations with a teacher, that frequency piece. What things and boundaries did you construct, TJ? Because I know you did thousands, which I'm really jealous on. I did not do thousands as an administrator. But for you, like, what construct did you have? And did you do it by yourself? Did you have other people or a team of folks to get you the time to get into classrooms? Or did you just say, like, this is top priority, everything else falls off to the wayside and it doesn't really matter, I'm just going to do observations and get in classrooms?
So I could do a whole riff on that. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. But I think one thing is, yes, prioritizing it. So the most important space in the school, it's not the cafeteria, it's not the hallway, it's not the bus lot. Those are important spaces, but they're not the most important space. And then instructional leadership, we break this down. You have about a 7.5 hour day with kids, or a 7 hour day with kids. Your work day is not 7 hours, but your instructional day. So what are you doing inside that instructional day? You can check email before work and after work. You can't get in classrooms and see teachers teaching and kids learning if you're checking email. So there's that. And I would say too, if you break it down even further, and you're doing, let's just do the math on it, 4 to 6 walkthroughs. So you're getting in classrooms. I've done this math with schools that have 3,000 kids and schools that have 80. You have a certain number of administrators and they're doing 4 to 6 walkthroughs at 12 to 17 minutes. Let's call that an hour and a half. You have a teacher observation one day and a post observation another. And I want you to do one of those every day, either a post observation, a pre-observation, or observation. You're at about 2.5 hours of instructional leadership in the 7.5 hour day. That's another 5.5 hours to do all the other management stuff. If you can't do all the management stuff in 5 hours, we have other problems that we need to fix.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's talk about that. And then 2 real quick strategies too. One is time blocking. So making sure that you have blocks of time on your calendar set that you're going to use for instructional leadership. And the second strategy is reverse time blocking, which is what actually happened during the day. Because I'm going to tell you that when you analyze your calendar, if you do reverse time blocking at the end of the day and the end of the week, you're going to find that the same 3 people and the same 3 problems are hijacking your time every week, every month. Those are the problems that need to be solved so you can do the things that you were actually intending to do. And the last thing I'll say to Mitch's point is, when people ask me what I teach, I say kids. And they say, well, no, what do you teach them? And I say all kinds of stuff. And then I walk away. And I was in English. I don't say English because I taught communication and writing and friendliness. And so I wanted to always hire people who were kids first and content second. I can teach you the content.
Yeah.
And I can teach you how to teach. So I can teach you the content and I can teach you how to teach. I just need to love kids.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you like being around kids?
Well, that's more of an interview question, which we probably need to do another series.
Because there's some people, you walk in their room and you're like, you don't like being around kids.
Mm-hmm. They love the content more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm like, just what a miserable existence. Go do something else. Mm-hmm. You can do lots of things with content, but professionally, wow. You don't like being with kids, Not that you have to like all of them all the time either, but you got to generally like being around kids.
I feel like, or they like the control. They like a sense of control, right? And that's a scary thing to be around. Yikesies.
Yeah.
Or it's an ideal scenario in their mind. Like, I've heard a lot of people say, I played teacher when I was a kid. And it's like, well, all the stuffed animals who you taught then, they didn't have personalities and all the things. Same. I mean, maybe you made some personalities up or whatever, but
they didn't wet their pants on the rug during whatever time, right? I mean, that didn't happen.
The adults didn't double bird them, tell them to F off and walk away?
No.
That's weird.
Not my stuffed animals, but I never played teacher, so
we should catch people playing teacher and then show them the reality.
Josh, that should be the cover of this episode. Just TJ at home teaching with stuffed animals, getting ready.
Or me giving the SpongeBob is to my teachers, which was, I wasn't a likable kid. I got thrown out of most classrooms I was ever in until I was in undergrad.
So let me ask a question to you all, because I think this is really cool when it does happen. When an observation, because we're talking about formal observations here. And so you do, of course, have your pre-evaluation and you sit down with your administrator. And for new teachers, that can be kind of intimidating and all that stuff. But if the school as a learning community is focused on initiatives and strategies, TJ, to your point of effect size and things that make for good teaching, and we know that it's a journey. We're all getting better slowly. We're trying. Picking the things to be observed on, it's like not even what's to talk about, because this is what we're kind of doing. And if it's not as a school leader, which I'm not and never have been, but if those initiatives, the things we're working on collectively that are tied to some why, should at the same time be tied to that rubric, unless the rubric is completely off base and then we just pick a few. And I remember for me being in that pre-evaluation, and I always kind of liked the you pick one, I pick two or something. And there was like at that time, eight standards for the teaching profession and then substandards, right? And they had to, by district order, kind of pick two, and they were usually chosen. And I remember clearly just being like, pick the third. I don't care. Pick any of them on here, and you can show up tomorrow. And I promise that's going to be happening because of the stuff we were talking about, like the teaching side, the pedagogy stuff. But it was because of the systems and the routines in my classroom and at my school. It was like really pick, other than there was one that was I'm actively engaged in ongoing professional development. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's cool. We're doing that. We're going to conferences. We're having internal stuff. But almost all of the rest, it's like, well, we should be doing this stuff, right? It shouldn't be like, oh, shit, I got to pick 3 strategies and focus on them this year. It's like, I don't think that's what we want to be doing as a learning community and as a leader that's kind of guiding us, right? Am I, as a formal observation, shouldn't it just kind of be like the air we breathe?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it was, so to the point of the pre-conference, but I will say it was always funny to me, like if something had to be rescheduled either on the teacher side or the admin side to say, oh, I have to come in another day at a different time, and the freak out level was high, it always was like, but everything that is on the rubric is something that you should be doing every single class period. It shouldn't be this shock moment that I'm preparing so I know every minute of everything that's going on that's going to show evidence onto the rubric. It's back to what you were saying, Mitch, of like that whole show that sometimes gets put out there during the formal observation, especially because they know what period most likely it's going to happen when exactly what time, and they get to dictate like the students that they're going to do it with too. You know, it's often that they chose an honors class. Well, why? Because they, for whatever reason, didn't want to show any misbehavior occurring in the classroom. But then I also had to go back and say, look, if you don't have any misbehavior in the classroom, then there's a whole section within this observation rubric that actually shows what you did during that and that you are showing the skill level to handle that behavior and get them back on track to learn. So if I don't have evidence of that, then I can't score that. So that's
I'm just going to interrupt you real quick. Sorry,
please.
Josh, but I think that really is a culture thing where I feel safe enough, just like kids need to feel safe enough to take risks inherent to learning. And we know that inherent to learning anything new is failure. It's just part of how we learn. So if that's not a culture at school, hell yeah, you're coming to my honors class because I don't really trust you and I have to feed my kids and I need to keep my job. I mean, it shifts everything. I remember clearly being in a situation early on too, with even like tips like or bits like support, beginning teacher support. My mentor was phenomenal. She ended up becoming our principal, but I would deliberately invite her into like the most. I had a class of 46 kids, all multi-language learners. That was like off the hook all the time. But I enjoyed it. I could have fun. Like it worked, but I wanted her feedback on that. Like I got to get better here, not with my pre-IB kids for bio, you know? So but I do think I felt safe enough and secure enough to have that invitation. So,
and I think that pre-conference is a place where you can start to build that trust because like I'm laying that on the table for you to understand prior to the construct actually occurs. So that way there is no surprise or you feel like it's me versus you. You know, I'm trying to lay it out so that they can see the rubric and run through all of it so that they know exactly how I'm scoring it, what's on the rubric. You know, this is examples of what each section would look like. You know, this is what it looks like for proficient or accomplished or exceeds, whatever. So trying to lay it out and communicate it as best as possible so that way they understand that I'm not there just to score it, but I'm there for their growth, for them as a human being to be better in their profession. And if I can communicate that well, then hopefully it doesn't really matter, like to your point, Mitch, who the class period is and when I come in, because they know exactly what it is that I'm looking for. TJ, you had some?
No, I was just going to say a couple things. One is that that just also requires a confident teacher. And the way you get confident as a teacher is to get stronger. And so I'm back to, we had 4 episodes on professional development. If you didn't watch them, you should go back and check them out, because if you're not owning your PD and getting stronger on your own, you're relying on the system to do that. It's not good enough. So what books are you reading? What conferences are you going to? What things are you trying to accomplish, in your off time, that are going to make you stronger on the on time? And I know that sounds like a lot, because we don't want to layer on for teachers, but it's the opposite of extra, because when you're good and you're confident and you're strong, it makes everything easier, not more hectic. I like the teacher who's so confident, like something happens in the class of the 46 and they like wink at me. Like, you know what I mean? They're like, check this out. That's how I was. Like something would go wrong and the administrator was in the back and I'd be like, you're about to see something go down. This is going to be great. Watch me turn this whole scenario around. And then the last thing, the other thing I was thinking about when you were saying that, I'm trying to get rid of all of the ancillary stuff, anything that's unimportant. So I read my teacher evaluation system really down to the letter. And in the system I had, the pre-observation form and the pre-observation were optional. And nobody knew it. Everybody just did it because that's what everybody did. And I found that they were optional in the system. And I said to my teachers, if you want to do this stuff, we can do it. I'm happy to do that. If you want to submit a form and have a pre-observation, we can do it. If that's what you want. Most of my teachers were like, I don't want to write a form and I don't want to meet with you. Just come in. And that eliminated hours of work for them and me. And it made the observation more rich. I still set the goals with them ahead of time. That was at the beginning of the year. But I got rid of all the other stuff. Like I want the observation and the post-observation. I want the walkthrough and the feedback. That form that you're going to fill out, that's not going to help either one of us with the execution of your lesson.
Yeah, that was an option for us, but I wish it was. That would have been helpful.
I was just thinking there have been some comments on Spotify on the podcast, specifically about not feeling supported by an administrator. And when you were saying, TJ, like, I love a confident teacher. There are so many teachers, like, remember even at VIBE Edu, you guys at that event, how many teachers were asking questions like, how do I do this though? If my administrator, right, that's where they were at. And I know Noelle, who was one of our speakers, Noelle Foy, she said, I had no idea that so many teachers felt that way. I think that was eye-opening for a lot of people. So I think being able to sit down with an administrator and just say, like, honestly say, hey, I have really been working on this, and this is what I would love for you to see. And I'd love to get some feedback on that. Just like that phrase alone, I feel like would start to kind of create that sense of trust and safety, right? Because nobody's going to be like coming down at you with that, like I've been seeking support and I've been really working on this. I'd love for some feedback. Like that alone, I think is a great stepping stone towards that confidence.
Yeah, pay me, Kim, when that person said that. Like that hurt my heart when she said that at VIBE Edu, because I do think that's more the norm than usual. And as an administrator, I just wish that dynamic didn't exist and that teachers did feel confident enough to be vulnerable to say like, hey, I do need help in this area. And how can you assist? And what is a plan to go forward with that? And unfortunately, that's not always the case. So
I really do think, and I'm going to say it over and over again, that is a result. And I want to do 4 episodes on the system, what I call the educational industrial complex. I stole that term. But I want to talk about the result of the system, but I do really feel the vast majority of the teachers who feel that way is a result of them relying on the system for their professional growth. And you just can't. The 3 days you get PD this year that could also be crappy, you just can't. You have to find the resources, the books, and the others, and you have to become confident and strong on your own. Very few systems are going to do that for you. I don't care if you're a teacher, administrator, or paraprofessional, or the kitchen worker. The system's not designed to make you strong. And I would challenge administrators, superintendents who are listening, that we need to build a system that strengthens our teachers and invests in our best. That's why we wrote that book, Invest in Your Best. A rising tide lifts all ships. But you have to invest in yourself first. I really just do believe it. No system is going to make you strong enough to be confident enough. Yes, some teachers are going to do it. Like I had teachers who did it, but guess what happened? They all did it on their own.
Mm-hmm. And some of that, that's a good point. I mean, I remember, I was just going to say some of that, or the starting place for that could often be just on your campus, right? Where I remember where the school, Sequoia High School, where I spent most of my career, right away from the jump, like my first year, that whole thing, I wanted to get better. And there were people that were veteran to me that I just, like, it was like, you know what I mean? Like word of mouth around campus, like Jack West, Kevin Deneen, some of these guys that were on campus that I had kind of knew. And I just went in and just made friends. I'm like, hey, can I just hang out and sit around? And I learned some good things. I also learned some things like I'm not doing that, but I also learned some good, but it was that whole point of like, you have to be hungry for it. And you're right. Books, conferences, anything. And that's what's so fun. Like at VIBE Edu, you could just get this sense that people were interested and hungry and wanting to learn. There was not one cynical person in that whole event. And sometimes, you get a cynic in the back room. Not that that's, necessarily a bad thing, but
it wasn't required either.
Pick themselves, right? They picked themselves.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And at the end, TJ, when I said, okay, it was like 9:02 and we had to end at 9. And I was like, okay, we got to wrap this up. And what'd they say? They're like, no. Yeah, they were upset that it was nighttime and they had to go home. I mean, when has that ever happened at a PD? It was beautiful. But the feedback also that I have been getting from teachers is they did feel empowered when they left. They felt like they found their herd, even like when they came, if they came in a small group or if they came as a party of one, they know that they don't have to do this work alone. They found people they feel empowered to make change and feel supported and feel safe and all of that. So yeah, again, next time you'll be there.
Should we wrap this up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, I know we could talk for a lot longer on this topic, but we got one more session for this teacher evaluation topic. We're going to end with the episode 4 in this series next time, which will be technically episode 8. But I will have in the show notes all of our websites so the listener can connect with each of us. On our websites, we have resources for you. Obviously, we have books, we talk, we do all these other things. So if you're interested in anything in regards to the 4 of us, I'll make sure that that's in the show notes for you. Of course, we'd love for you to subscribe on any podcast platform, or if you're in YouTube, make sure you like it, comment, do all the things as far as sharing it out. I know there's a comedian that I love that says, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies. And I'll say the exact same thing for this podcast, because everybody in education needs to hear these conversations, because we are challenging the status quo and trying to make something different and better as a community. And we are so fortunate to be together, but also to be with you. And so we'd love to connect with you in any way possible. Hit that subscribe, share it out, and we'll see you next week.